Souls-like games have gotten more and more popular as the years go by. Video game studios keep finding new ways to give a creative spin to the genre. One of these is the indie game developer Oddbox Studio, who had the brilliant idea to create a 2D Souls-like game, mixing anthropomorphic rats, fairy tale medieval aesthetics and feel with some incredible visuals and music. And I have to say, they nailed it. Hi everyone, my name is Jeremy and this is my non-spoiler review of Tales of Iron for the Ps5. Thanks to developer Oddbox Studios and publisher United Label for the review code. Let's start with the story and premise of this game. Tales of Iron follows the story of Redgi, the youngest of 4 brothers that is the heir to the kingdom of his father, King Radis. King Radis was adored by the people of his kingdom because under his rule, the rats were able to unite and were able to finish the war against the Frog Clan and find peace. Years have passed and King Radis is old and preparing his son to be the next king. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the frogs attack the kingdom and kill the king. Now Redgi must assume his role as king, save his kingdom, and defeat the Frog Clan once and for all. The story in Tales of Iron opens with a cutscene, setting the context in which the game takes place. After that, the story is told by a narrator as you play through the game. This narrator is none other than Doug Cockle, the voice of Geralt of Rivia from The Witcher. And believe me, he does an outstanding job.
When his squire woke him with this god-awful noise, the young prince was dreaming about this day, just like he had for months. Now it was here, he better be ready.
The characters in the story don't have voices. The player sees the conversations play out with drawings inside the dialogue bubbles as the characters emit weird but cute noises while they talk. And the narrator is the one who actually tells us what's happening. One of the things that was a nice touch is that when the narrator voice is narrating, you can still move around. If you move to another section of the game, the narration continues without interruption, meaning you can keep playing while you listen and don't have to worry that by moving you will interrupt the storytelling.
All the prince had ever wanted was to prove worthy of his father's crown. He might be the smallest brother, but if he was prepared, he thought he had some small chance.
The story has a beautiful contrast with the visuals of the game, which we will discuss in a second. What I mean by this is that the art style of the game looks beautiful and even cute, but the story is dark and serious. And this contrast of visuals and story really complement each other. The same goes for the narration, which incorporates puns and subtle jokes that helps the story not feel overwhelmingly dark. The narration of the story blends perfectly with the fairy tale medieval look that the game goes for. All of these elements come together in an outstanding and beautiful way, giving life to a story that feels as if you were reading a dark fairy tale. So now let's talk about the graphics. Tales of Iron features a beautiful hand-drawn style that invokes the aesthetics of medieval fairy tale settings. All of the characters are anthropomorphic rats and frogs, only the insects are presented as what they are, insects. What really takes the visuals of this game to another level are all the details the developer invested time in to make the game look visually pleasing and alive. For example, the background of every stage is filled with details to give life to the setting. Dead bodies, smoke, wall filled with banners, broken columns, rain, leaves, and all sort of things that give depth to the stages. The particle effects and the incredible lighting effects adds another layer of visual delight as you play through the game. And even smaller details, like for example when your character kills a bug, you can see the yellow blood all over his face, clothing and weapons. Each stage is diverse and filled with details corresponding to that specific place. The animations of the characters are very well executed and filled with subtle aspects, like for example, when your character guts an insect to take its uses to fill his healing flask, or when you're charging an attack, and even when you sit down at a bench. All these subtleties breathe life to the visuals of the game. On top of that, the Ps5 version of the game runs at a flawless 60 frames per second with no stutter whatsoever. Additionally, loading times between stages or when you die are very short, which is very important considering that this is a Souls-like game and you're gonna be dying a lot. The music and sound design of this game is another strong point for this indie game. The different soundtracks of Tales of Iron carry on the fairy tale medieval feel of the game. Each track is accentuated by a particular instrument, giving each stage unique music. Once again, the level of care and detail is surprising. When you begin the first areas of the game, the Frog Clan have taken over and you must defeat them and defeat the boss of that area. As you first arrive, you will notice that there isn't music, that all you can hear is ambient sounds, like rain, thunder, the metal of the swords and spears clashing, the sound of flesh being hit by metal weapons, the heavy breathing and grunts of the characters that convey to the player a somber feeling of war. When you're fighting the boss, music kicks in and you will notice frogs playing the music in the background.
Their leader, Lanzalut, had never been bested in battle. He had a lance as lethal as it was legend, but he also had the only key.
After you defeat the boss of the area and the people of the area are free, the music kicks in, giving you a feeling of hope and normalcy of the place. To top it off, you will notice that each stage has a particular instrument that stands out in the soundtrack, and that in certain areas within a stage, it sounds further or nearer. That is because each area has a bard that plays an instrument that corresponds to what you are hearing in the music. And as you get closer to the bard, the music sounds louder and closer. And as you get further away from the bard, the music gets lower and more distant. It's this level of detail that makes the music in this game stand out and feel organic with the game's environment. In general, I would have to say that the music in this game is beautiful and captivating. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty details of the gameplay of Tales of Iron. As I said before, Tales of Iron is a 2D Souls-like RPG game, meaning three things. First of all, the game is played in a 2D environment where you can move left or right, up or down in a stage. Second, methodical, quick reacting, brutal and unforgiving fights are at the core of the gameplay. And third, the game integrates some RPG mechanics to add depth and a sense of progression as you play through it. To better understand the gameplay of this game, I'm gonna divide it in three sections: the fighting system, the RPG mechanics, and the exploration. In relation to the fighting system, your main character can attack, dodge, roll, parry, block, and jump. You have a life gauge and a healing flask that you can use to heal and has a limited amount of uses, but that can be refilled at barrels or by gutting insects. The game does not feature a stamina gauge, meaning that you can block attacks and dodge as much as you like. What will limit these movements will be the different types of attacks that the enemies have. Enemies have a regular attack, which has no tail beyond the attack animation, red attacks that should be dodged, yellow attacks which should be parried, and white attacks that are projectiles and should be blocked. If you block during a red attack, you will take damage. If you dodge during a yellow attack, you will probably take damage. And if you try to dodge with a projectile, you will take damage. In this way, the game makes sure to push the player to constantly move and pay attention to the fight without them being able to spam block or dodges to solve everything. Because of this, the game doesn't need the stamina gauge. Your character has a one-handed weapon, a two-handed weapon, and a ranged weapon. The one-handed weapon is faster and allows you to use a shield. The two-handed weapon is slower and heavier but allows you to break certain enemies' defenses. And the ranged attack has a limited number of bullets so that you don't over-rely on it. Additionally, you can charge your one-handed or two-handed weapon attack for a more powerful blow. And you can change between these two weapons at any point during a fight. The game explains most of these mechanics to the player and gives them the time to get used to them, but it doesn't explain all of them and trusts the player to experiment and find out some of these mechanics. In what regards to enemy types, there is a lot of variety. The game features very diverse looking enemies, small, medium, and big, and with different fighting styles and mechanics to always keep the player on their toes. Boss designs are particularly cool, and the fights are challenging and fun. It is important to note that a lot of the mechanics of the game become available as you progress through the game and are not available from the beginning. That is the case of the two-handed weapons and the ranged weapons, for example. Because this is a Souls-like game, one of the questions that always comes up is the difficulty of the game. First off, the game has only one difficulty, which obviously you don't choose or anything, you just start playing. And based on my personal experience playing this game, I found it to be challenging, but it never got excessively hard. You will die a few times because you need to learn enemy patterns to be more effective during fights, but I never felt like the game was excessively difficult. In that sense, I feel like this game is accessible and it doesn't have a high gameplay skill requirement like other Souls-like games. The button layout in the controller feels comfortable, and that's good because sadly you cannot map the controller buttons in this game. And regarding the haptic feedback and vibrations of the PS5 controller, nothing in particular stood out to me. The game doesn't use these PS5 features in any way that stands out or that elevates the gameplay experience. So let's take a look at the RPG mechanics, because this game features quite a few of them. The game features 3 types of equipment: helmets, armor, and shields, which grant you different levels of defense and resistance to certain type of enemies. There is a light, medium, and heavy version of each equipment type. There is resistance to the 4 types of enemies of the game: frog, mosey, mole, and grub. There are 3 types of one-handed and two-handed weapons, each offering the player different advantages and playstyles. And just as there are 3 types of one-handed and two-handed weapons, there are 3 types of ranged weapons, which you unlock as you progress through the game. Each equipment and weapon has a certain weight. The heavier you are, the slower your roll will be. However, the movement speed of the character is not affected by the weight mechanic. The game does not feature a leveling up system. However, the sense of progression comes from different mechanics, like for example the stats of each weapon and armor. The game features basic cooking and crafting mechanics with the chef and blacksmith of the game. The cooking mechanic features 4 plates of food that the chef can create for you if you manage to find the 3 ingredients of each dish. This is an important mechanic because it is through cooking that our main character can increase his max health, adding to the sense of character progression in the game. In the blacksmith's case, you bring him blueprints and he crafts or transforms those blueprints into new pieces of equipment and weapons. The game also features side quests that you can access from a bulletin board. These side quests reward you with more equipment and weapons and money. It's important to notice that side quests are the only way to get money in this game, and the money is used only for repairing your base and getting access to some of the mechanics of the game, like the chef's cooking and the blacksmith's crafting. Other side quests are found in towns by talking to people and giving them key items or resources that they ask for. Last but not least, let's look at the exploration. The game is divided in stages that you select from a map. Each stage is very big and features different types of enemies, towns, NPCs to save and to talk to, and hidden areas to explore. One of these stages serves as your base of operations, and it is where you have available a lot of the mechanics of the game. You have access to a map by pressing the controller pad, and the maps are beautiful and detailed and help the player to not get lost and to always know where they are and where they need to go. As you explore and defeat enemies and bosses, you find key items for side quests, new weapons and armors and resources that can be used for different things in the game. The weapons and armor that you have equipped can only be changed at weapon chests, meaning that if you find a new weapon or armor while exploring, the game will give you the option of equipping it or storing it. And it is only when you reach a weapons chest that you can change your equipment. The game features an autosave feature that activates at certain key points in the game, but you can save by sitting at benches scattered throughout the stages. Some of these stations have weapon chests so you can manage your inventory, and barrels so that you can fill your health flask, among other things. So, up until this point, I have talked about a lot of good things of this game, but not everything is perfect. There were some things that affected my gameplay experience that I feel you should know. Mainly, it comes down to 2 things. First of all, traversing stations can get boring because there is no fast travel system within the stages. The game features fast travel between stages, but not inside the stage. Meaning that when you go into a stage, you start at the town, for example. And if you need to go to the other side of the map, you need to walk there. This is especially annoying when you are doing side quests and the game requires you to go to one corner of the stage, defeat some enemies, and walk all the way back. This took away from my gameplay experience because I wasted so much time just walking from point A to point B, and this could have been easily resolved by implementing a fast travel system similar to the bonfires in Dark Souls, where you could move from one save point to another without having to walk there. I know not everybody loves that, but personally I think it would have been good to have the option. The second thing that took away from my gameplay experience and that I feel that affected the game is the progression of the story. The first part of the game has you going to new stages to fend off the Frog Clan from your lands and to save some of your family members, and this is part of the main story, and that was totally awesome and totally fine. However, there is a certain point where the game requires you, as part of the main quest, to complete side quests to continue the main story. This was bad for a few reasons. Side quests are very repetitive and boil down to go somewhere to kill something in the stage or find certain items somewhere in the map, and obviously requiring the player to complete mundane side quests to continue the main story breaks the pacing, which was very good until that point. Honestly, this felt like padding. It felt like they couldn't make the main story any longer and they needed to fill it up with something, so they decided to obligate the player to complete side quests to continue the main story, and it really affected the gameplay experience. Having pointed out some aspects of the game that take away from the gameplay experience, let's mention what stood out and made this game shine. The three things that really stood out to me the most were the visuals, the music, and the gameplay. And with regards to the visual, the art style of this game combined with the incredible level of particle, lighting, and environmental details made the aesthetics of this game stand out and be a pleasure to look at from beginning to end. The music complements the visuals of the game, delighting the player with unique soundtracks that have specific instruments as protagonists in its compositions. And the gameplay was challenging and fun, keeping a balance that you rarely see in Souls-like games. In conclusion, Tales of Iron is a truly unique addition to the video game landscape and to the Souls-like genre, achieving a beautiful balance of visuals, music, and gameplay that complement each other to create what is almost a masterpiece. The backtracking without fast travel inside the stages, and the strange decision to obligate the player to complete mundane side quests to continue with the main story keep this game from achieving the masterpiece level. However, these details do not ruin the experience of this wonderful game. For this reason, I highly recommend Tales of Iron for the PS5. This is a must play for Souls fans. So that's going to be it for this non-spoiler review. Remember to leave a like if you liked it, and a dislike if you didn't. Leave a comment of what you thought of the game or this review, and I will see you guys later. Bye!
He'd done it. He'd proved himself a worthy heir to his father's kingdom. His dream was about to come apart.
Hi everyone, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with our content.